Hey, folks, God, do I have a good show for you today? Not just about corporate America getting fucked hard, but also I got other stories. The BBC admitting that British troops were murdering detainees. I got loads of good stuff for you. I really do. As you noticed, I'm sorry, Eleanor Goldfield could not be here today. Life got in the way as it tended to do, and also I'm feeling a little out of it as well. So we just got to make it work. We gotta go with what we got, and Eleanor sends her best. Saturdays are normally the day that we do this together. But for those of you who only show up to these for the Eleanor Goldfield, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. It's just the way things are, and I still love you, even though that really hurts my feelings. That you got me good. You got me good on that one. But I hope everyone's doing okay out there. Please take a second to share this, hit the thumbs up, and hit all of the thingamajiggers and all that good stuff. And I love when people tweet it out. Obviously, I don't see them unless you tag me at Lee Camp. But for those of you who tweet it out, post it out, pump it out, diddle it out. I don't know how other ways you may get this out to people. Diddling may not be the most convenient. It takes some time, but yeah, thank you for all that. And let's get into it. So like I said, I got a bunch of stories for you, but we will start off with and I know I've covered this story before, but it just keeps growing. So why not keep covering it? This is huge. It's massive. It's not slowing down, which I fucking love. Honestly, I love anything where corporate America is just shaking in their boots. When corporate America, any area of it, whether it's the cafes or restaurants or clothing stores or whatever, when corporate America, big oil, all that shit, big pharma, when corporate America at any point is just like, oh, flying shit bags, then I'm excited. That's what I live for. That's why I'm here. And so that's why I like this story. But basically, oh, hold on. Let me change that insane background. God damn it. All right. Starbucks, and by the way, the group is called Starbucks Workers United, and they have just notched their 200th union win over the span of like a few months. Like, this has not been a long time that Starbucks has been cranking up the unions, and Starbucks the management, whatever, the CEOs, the executives, the board, the top of the top of the top of the Starbucks, the ones that actually make the decisions, that sit around in the boardroom and smoking a cigar and smoking a young Filipino boy, and they pause and they go, let's use child labor to pick our coffee roaster beans. Then they put the cigar and the Filipino boy back in their mouth and they go back to smoking. Those guys, those motherfuckers that destroy lives, destroy towns. I mean, let's also just talk about that. The fact that Starbucks has destroyed communities because they come in, you got like Amy's coffee shop. Amy's like a fucking 67-year-old who's had her coffee shop there for 30 years. And she loves it, and she loves serving folks coffee. And she's got her little thing, and she's got 2 cupcakes she serves each day. One's a muffin, one's a cupcake, depending on how crazy your day is. And she got a 2 thing, and she bakes them at home and all that. And there's small towns across America that had that kind of stuff. And then Starbucks would come in just next to Amy, and they'd be like, oh, Amy's doing all right there. Well, I bet if we went in there and we took away 85% of Amy's business, I think that'd be a good plan for us. That would help the investors do a little better. So yeah, they just destroyed the mentality that everything would just become this homogenous across America. I did a lot of touring America. I played in towns all over God knows where. stand-up comedy, and the towns I like best were the ones that were, and it was not easy for them, but still hanging on to that sense of self, that sense of personality, that shit where they're like, we're a little bit weird here, and you had to figure out what it was that they did weird, but they had their own shit, their own personality. And they fought off the corporate homogenization, the fucking dilution of any kind of personality, any kind of I don't know, just being that was unique, any kind of unique cultural gifts that this area had. And all these things would come as Starbucks, which is the same in everyone across America, right? So you're like, this is the coffee culture now. And you put that one in, and you put Amy out of business, and she's, 10 weeks after Starbucks shows up, she's under a bridge, banging the tin can for a couple of coins. And yeah, but it's not just Starbucks, right? It's Walmart, it's fucking Target, it's the Cheesecake Factory and McDonald's and Burger King and all this garbage. But anyway, that being said, I appreciate anything that scares those fucking executives and makes them nervous and makes them have to give back to the workers. Because as much as annoyed as I am by what Starbucks and other corporate American shit shows have done to small towns and to areas across the country, I don't blame the workers. The workers at the stores they're doing their best, right? They're trying to make a living. They're working at a place where they found a job. I bet you'd be hard pressed to find one of them go, yeah, listen, I was born and bred to work at Starbucks. This is my passion. This is my life. This is what I want to do. I am here, man. You will not hear that, because in our economic force system, in our system of having the economic force of corporate America with a boot on your throat, people pick jobs because they just need to get by, and they're just doing it to survive and to live an okay life. And so I don't blame the workers. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had times where I might, flip the fuck out at one of these workers. I always try to avoid Starbucks, but that doesn't mean I haven't, I'm a coffee addict, have been for, I don't know, 20 to 70 years, somewhere in there. And so if an area only has Starbucks, then I got to get Starbucks. But I try to avoid it as much as I can. But and so, of course, I go in there, and over the years, I've had a million problems with various things. Like, for example, the moment Starbucks showed up, I remember when they got big. They started getting big when I was in college, and they were like across the country. And the first one showed up at the college campus, and I was like, oh, what is this place? This cafe of sorts. And you go in there, and I remember seeing the sizes where it's like tall, grande, and I'm like, hold on, tall. The word tall means small. I don't know. And it just like made me angry. So throughout my entire life, to this day, if I have to order a tall at a Starbucks, I say small. And I hope they fucking figure it out. And if they won't figure it out and they go, do you mean a tall? And I'm like, a small. I want the smallest size coffee you offer. It's a small. And if they go, you mean tall? And they keep doing it, then I'll fucking take it out on them. I don't care. So, yeah, but I understand it's not really their fault. But how much they adhere to this corporate garbage, that's their fault. But of course, they probably have a manager who's standing over their shoulder who's like, did you just call it a small? I heard you talking to that customer and you said small. Why didn't you say tall as is dictated in the Starbucks manual, page 31A? Huh? Riddle me that, Carlos. So anyway, that being said, it's a historic moment in American labor as Starbucks workers notch their 200th union win. This is from commondreams.org. With a victory in Cleveland on Friday, Starbucks workers officially reached 200 union election wins across more than 30 U.S. states. A remarkable achievement in the face of full throttle union busting campaign by the coffee company's management and its billionaire interim CEO, Howard Schultz. They brought back their billionaire CEO, Howard Schultz, to try and crush these unions. And luckily, he has fucking failed because he sucks. But speaking of that, let me show you just real quick what they mean by full throttle union busting effort. Workers say the National Labor Review Board complaint fully unmasks Starbucks' facade as a progressive company. Yeah, I don't know who thinks Starbucks is a progressive company. You got to be like, honestly, like, well, listen, the child laborers that pick their coffee beans are all people of color. So they are a progressive company, because when they hire a 4 to 6 year old to grab those beans off those bushes and work 20-hour days, they only even consider little boys and girls of color. And they don't even ask their gender. Okay, any gender is welcome. At however you identify is fine. If you want to be a child labor at Starbucks, as long as you are a child of color, of a variety of colors, any color, as long as it's not lack of color, you can be a child laborer for Starbucks. So there was a big push to stop them from using their child labor for picking their coffee beans. And there was like, to some extent, some effort that Starbucks did, like, we only allow fair trade. And they put little signs up saying, this is fair trade coffee or whatever. But then the actual investigations into whether they had done anything just meant they like asked. They like called down to Columbia or wherever, and they were like, hey, you're not using any children down there, are you? This is Dan up at Starbucks International, and you're not using children, are you? And then down there in the Colombian farm is like, no, sir. No, senor. Never use child labor. And Starbucks is like, all right, good to know it. Click. And that was the extent of them checking to make sure the kids weren't picking the beans. But so here's what they've been up to. Oh, wait, that's wrong. Here's their efforts to stop these unions from forming. They've been singling out union organizers for discipline, surveillance, and termination, shuttering entire stores, such as in Buffalo, amid the union push, and threatening workers with inferior benefits if they voted to unionize. This is all standard corporate American bullshit to try and stop workers from having power, from having rights, from having benefits. And, you know, Starbucks is doing the same shit. I don't care if they have a Michael Bublé CD at the cash register. They are shitheads, okay? I don't care if there's a old Janis Joplin best of album CD at the cash register. I'm acting like they still have CDs at the cash register. That was like 2003. Every time you'd go to Starbucks, they had a little rack of 2 CDs that were like on Oprah's book club or some shit. And you had to. They were like, "Would you? Well, you buy a coffee? We'll give you a free Michael Bublé CD." Anyway, let's go back to this article. With a victory, the corporate assault. The speed with which Starbucks workers across the country built a historic victory in Buffalo in December, when employees voted to form the company's first ever unionized store in the U.S., has stunned observers who've seen the nation's labor movement wither in recent decades amid a ruthless corporate assault. Quote, across the country, Starbucks workers are striking against poor working conditions and the company's open hostility to Starbucks Workers United nationwide union drive, said Robert Reich, the former head of the U.S. Department of Labor. In 1 year, 200 U.S. Starbucks stores have unionized. Pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. despite the assault against them, despite the efforts against them. And every week, it's like a theme now. We didn't intend for it to be a theme, but every week on our podcast, Government Secrets, it seems like every week. It's probably every third week on our podcast, on the podcast I do called Government Secrets. We cover some strike or something in American history where workers stood up and fought back, and usually a few were killed. A few went home dead, fighting for rights. And this happened again and again and again in American history. And yet most of it is whitewashed, covered up, thrown by the wayside, not taught in history classes. Honestly, in the history classes I grew up with, they were like, we're going to spend the next 6 months on what great white men have done. Then we will have 1 week on Harriet Tubman, on the wonderful, wonderful things she did. And then that will be it. There will be no mention of unions, of strikers, of workers, of assassinating workers, of U.S. militias being brought out to shoot and kill workers, of Pinkertons beating workers silly, of private corporate police of one form or another destroying the lives of workers who tried to organize. We're not going to mention any of that. But there will be a week on Harriet Tubman. So be ready for that, because that will show how progressive we are here in Virginia public schools, where I grew up. Virginia public schools. So, yeah, it's impressive what Starbucks is doing. Like I said, I have issues with some of the things that go on with Starbucks, but I don't take it out on the work. Sometimes I take it out on the workers, but I don't take it out on the workers writ large. In general, the workers are all wonderful people doing their best, but occasionally something will happen. Like I used to do. I used to talk about it on stage. I went into one of them and they had a muffin there or whatever, a piece of muffin cake. They pretend it's a muffin because muffin sounds like a breakfast thing. You're like, I'm doing good for my body. I'm getting a muffin. And in fact, it's the same goddamn calorie intake as a cupcake. You're just eating a slice of cake. But no one walks in there at 10 a.m. and goes, let's give me a good old hunk of chocolate cake. No one does that. So instead, they just call it a chocolate muffin. And you go, oh, it's a muffin. It's breakfast time. Have a good old hunk of chocolate muffin. Anyway, so I was getting this hunk of whatever the fuck it was. But it was called, it said on the little sign there, crumbleberry cake or something. And so, and I was like, I'm going to be goddamned if I'm saying the word crumbleberry. Sick of the juvenilization of this goddamn world. I want to act like I'm an adult. I'm trying to pretend to be an adult here. I was probably like 32 at the time or something. I'm like, I am a grown ass man here. And my great grandfather would not have walked into the saloon and said, give me a crumbleberry. He would not do that. So I'm not going to do that. And I said, I would like a piece of cake or whatever. I said, I'll have your thing there. And I point at it and the guy goes, which one? And I'm like, that one right there. And he's like, which one? And I was like, the cake thingy there. And he's like, which one? And I fucking knew he knew which one, but he wanted to hear me say the word crumbleberry because that's how he gets his enjoyment in life. Things are not going well for him, so he wants to get some thrill out of the authority of forcing adult people to say, crumbleberry, I'd like a crumbleberry piece of pie, please. And then, put your balls in the tip cup. So I told him to go fuckleberry himself, and I got the fuck out of there. But but I did want a crumbleberry pie, and it didn't happen. Didn't happen for me. Point is, I don't blame the workers in general for that asshole. And I don't blame the workers for naming it fucking crumbleberry. Okay? That's Starbucks corporate that comes out with that garbage. Anyway, good for you guys. Good for you for fighting back. Keep doing it. And as I always say to folks, if you're going to walk into one of these coffee shops, and I understand that, it makes more sense with a corporate one. But if you walk into one of, like I said, if you're in a coffee desert, you got to go to Starbucks. And just plant a little seed there that they should be unionized. Just be like, oh, when's your union forming? And they'll go, oh, we don't have one. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then you just walk out. Just leave a little. It's like leaving a union fart just in the middle of because then all the workers hear that and they perk up and they go, what just happened? And it lingers there. It lingers. And they all have to smell it. And so you just leave that little bit there, But yeah, so workers need to unite. We all need to unite. And then once we've united and we have more power, because we do have more power than the corporate heads, the tiny 0.1% that actually rule the systems. We have more power than them because we have more of us, and it's our labor that fucking runs this country and every country that keeps it going. So we have more power than them. We just got to unite. And so they do everything they can to stop us from uniting. And once we've united and we can fucking beat them at their game, to even just a small degree. If we just did to a small degree, then we can start pushing past that to no more wage slavery. Just leaving that there, just mentioning, because I feel like a lot of people only talk about the surface level, which is let's unionize and fight back, and then the next level is let's get rid of wage slavery and let's destroy capitalism. So those are fun things too. And if you're watching any other shows where they don't know what the fuck's going on in the world, and either one of those means you shouldn't be regular viewers of people that can't say the C word. And I think you know which C word I mean. All right, so I thought I'd by the way, in a few minutes, this broadcast, can we call it a broadcast? This stream will only be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It will continue there, and it's free to watch there. But we're going to go a few more minutes on all of the platforms. So I wanted to show you what the AP did, the Associated Press. Now, most of you know this. Please hold. Most of you know this, but the Associated Press is mainstream media, and it's liberal mainstream media. Its stories are often picked up across, New York Times, and they often will proudly say, as the AP reported, and to them that feels really special and strong. Oh, the AP, as the AP reported. All right, well, the AP, my goodness. And so they're this, impressive, quote unquote, mainstream media, liberal outlet. And here they are. This is like today. Here's the AP straight up tweeting about brave Nazis. This is the Associated Press Associated Press of Twitter talking about brave Nazis. They say bravery of Azovstal, meaning Azov Battalion, Azovstal defenders recalled at Kiev funeral. And then the image is legit a bunch of guys in fatigues carrying a coffin with the fucking Nazi emblem on it. It's not even like hidden. This shit is not in. It's not like it had a painting of a unicorn on the coffin. It's not a fucking leprechaun. It's a goddamn Nazi symbol across the coffin of this fucking funeral in Ukraine with guys in fatigues petting the coffin. And the AP is posting this about the bravery of these fighters. The bravery of these fine Nazis. Some of the finest Nazis I have ever known. This is just fucking disgusting. And this is what you get when the Western world, the US, the UK, Europe, NATO, is all funding and arming Nazis. And this does not mean I'm for the Russian invasion. I'm both against the Russian invasion and I'm against the U.S. proxy war. I'm against it all because I'm against war. I'm anti-war. And fucking idiots can't understand that. And people still love to get in the comment threads, in the chats, and go, oh, Lee Camp supports the fucking, killing of civilian. Nope. Sorry. But those of you who are endorsing this, you might want to reconsider, because it's goddamn close to a swastika on their fucking coffins. And here's one of the responses. Hey, AP, that's a nice picture. Correct me if I'm wrong, but referring to Azov members as Nazis was Russian propaganda, right? Then why is there a Nazi SS symbol on the casket? Legit. And then it shows the different emblems, which, one of them is the emblem of the neo-Nazi military unit, the Azov Battalion. Another one is the emblem of the Nazi SS military unit, Second World War. And by the way, those two emblems are almost identical. There's essentially no difference between the Azov Battalion and the Nazi SS military unit in the Second World War. And then there's the Nazis' Black Sun symbol that is also used by these people and is not that different from a swastika in many ways. So, really not that tough to understand. Really not a hard thing to nail down. It's not like, because these other ones, like when we point out that al-Nusra or something, that the U.S., is funding and arming al-Nusra, and we gotta tell people, hey, you know what al-Nusra is? It's an Al-Qaeda affiliate. It's basically, it's part of Al-Qaeda that splintered off and is now an affiliate. So when you say you're funding and arming al-Nusra, which the U.S. Army and the CIA have done, then you're funding and arming Al-Qaeda. But, you just gotta learn that. You just gotta study that. With this shit, you can see the emblems on the fucking caskets. You don't even have to do much work. This is remedial understanding. The goddamn emblems are sitting there for you to understand. I mean, just incredible. And the other day on the live stream, I covered how I showed you video of U.S., Javelin missiles and shit, the missiles and grenade launchers and stuff that we're sending and helping buy for Ukraine. I showed you video of it being sold on the black market out of the back of a goddamn truck, because that's where our money and weapons is going. It's going partially to the black market, going to terrorists, being bought for $20,000, which is nothing on the black market. And that's where your student debt is. Student debt forgiveness. That's where your fucking MRI you couldn't afford. That's where that money went. The U.S. could be covering that stuff. That's where when you were in public schools, and rather than serving you a legit lunch, they gave you ketchup packets and meats that was ground up rats from the back. Ground up raccoon and a possum in a taco called a Salisbury steak, Salisbury mystery meat. Public schools where it was, I went to public schools. It was, 50 kids to a classroom. We had books that went out of date in 1937. And all that money that could make those high-tech, awesome schools, that money, that's going to missiles and grenade launchers to be sold to terrorists for $20,000 on the black market. That's where that's going. So thank our U.S. government, both sides of the aisle, because there is no aisle anymore. When you hear both sides of the aisle, there is no aisle anymore. So it's just crazy that this is what they're they're acting like. This is fine. AP is like, yeah, look at the brave Nazis, running around. So that's coming from the AP. And here's another article from BBC. And I like this one because this is mainstream media and mainstream British media admitting. I always like when the reality of the situation gets to the mainstream, gets to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Like I said on my other podcast, Government Secrets, this week, I didn't mention this part, but this week I covered the Ford and GM being heavily involved with Nazi Germany. And many of the vehicles, some of the planes, many of the vehicles were created by Ford and GM to help the Nazis in their war effort. And so that was and I read from an article in the Washington Post in 1996. Washington Post. So I love when this stuff gets to the mainstream. I love when your mainstream media is finally like, all right, we got to admit, there were no WMD in Iraq. Shit like that. And of course, it always shows that we were right. That those of us in the independent media that were maligned and trashed and censored and harangued and harassed and criticized, it always shows we were right. Every time. Never without a doubt. So here's from BBC. SAS unit, which is, as you know, British military. SAS unit repeatedly killed Afghan detainees, the BBC has found. So they're admitting that the Brits in Afghanistan were murdering detainees, which is a war crime, because once they're detainees, what does that mean? Well, whether they were people you didn't like or they're innocent civilians that you grabbed up and acted like they were bad people, either one, at that point, once they're a detainee, they're fucking unarmed because you already stripped them and took any guns or anything they might have had. That's if they weren't an unarmed citizen to begin with. They're fucking hungry. They've been kept in a cell. They've been likely tortured. And now you're killing them. So that's a war crime. That's the definition of a war crime. To read from the article, SAS operatives in Afghanistan repeatedly killed detainees and unarmed men in suspicious circumstances. Yeah, you know how you know there's suspicious circumstances? Because you're killing detainees. It's already suspicious. You don't need to. That's already a fucking suspicious circumstance. There's no legit circumstance where you murder a detainee. Newly obtained military reports suggest that one unit may have unlawfully killed 54 people in one 6-month tour. That's one unit in 6 months. That's not every unit across Afghanistan. This investigation looked into one unit for 6 months, and they murdered that they could find easy evidence of. They murdered 54 people. Each one of those is a war crime because these are unarmed detainees. They're already arrested, probably hands tied behind their backs. It was zip tied behind their backs. Probably starved, probably thirsty, probably tortured in a variety of ways, and then they were murdered. The BBC found evidence suggesting the former head of Special Forces failed to pass on evidence to a murder inquiry. Yeah, that's what they do. That's what the head of Special Forces does, is not give evidence that indicts Special Forces. I mean, honestly, what is the military except one big fight club? It's just one big rule. Number one of Special Forces, you do not talk about Special Forces. Rule number two about Special Forces, you do not talk about Special Forces. That's what they fucking do. The Ministry of Defense said British troops served with courage and professionalism in Afghanistan. I love how that's the response. It's just like, so we found evidence that you murdered a lot of people. What's interesting about these murders is they were all unarmed and had their hands tied behind their backs and were, hanging from a wall. And we wanted to know how you felt about how many people you had murdered, because it's just like so weird that happened, right? And then the Ministry of Defense said, Well, I'll tell you one thing. British troops, they served with courage and professionalism in Afghanistan. Yeah, I hear that you're saying that, but that's actually the polar opposite of what I'm asking you, because this is not courageous nor professional. This is just like awful, awful shit that is just totally repulsive and morally bankrupt and makes us the bad guys. And we don't want to be the bad guys, and that's totally what this does. And he was just like, yep. Well, as you're saying, British troops served with courage and professionalism in Afghanistan. Right. I think I get it. I think you're not really going to address this. The BBC understands that General Sir Mark Carleton Smith. Oh, fuck the Brits, dude. With a name like General Sir. If you come calling him, how many honorifics do you have to have on this guy's goddamn name? General Sir? Go fuck yourself. You already call him General. He shouldn't even be entitled to that. You should call him Mark. That asshole Mark who wears all the little shits on his shoulders. Yeah, you know that guy with all the stupid gold stars, like he's at a costume party? That guy. Mark. Yeah, you know Mark. Instead, General Sir Mark Carleton Smith, Esquire, Duke of Earl. Fuck you. The former head of UK Special Forces was briefed about the alleged unlawful killings, but did not. By the way, every killing in Afghanistan is unlawful because we fucking invaded their country for no reason and fucking killed other people. So it's all unlawful. You don't need to sit there and go, well, let's look at how they murdered him and whether it was the good kind of murder or the bad kind. No, we've invaded a country and we're murdering their people. That's unlawful. It's all unlawful. Same with Iraq. You don't have to say unlawful killing. All the killing in Iraq was unlawful. Every last one. Not a single one in Iraq was legitimate and lawful. He was briefed on the killings, but did not pass on the evidence to the Royal Military Police, even after the Royal Military Police began a murder investigation into the SAS squadron. So, I mean, the other thing that is not surprising about this is that's what murderers do, right? That's murderers cover up their murders. I know BBC sounds shocked about this, but I'd say most of the time, I'm going to go 93% of the time, 93% that murderers murder people. They then don't try and tell a lot of people about it. They're not sure. You have the very rare fucking awful mass shooting live streamer. But in general, 93% of the time, murderers gonna murder and then they're gonna try and hide that they murdered. Because they're like totally not into spending the rest of their lives in prison or getting murdered by the murderee's family. Or even just being known as a murderer, just like around town. Hey, murderer. Hey, how you doing? They don't want that, you know? They don't want like when you go to one of those hamburger shops where you put your name down and then they call your name later when the burger's ready. And, you know, the guy calling the names just goes, murderer, order up. Like, they don't need that. They don't want that. So most of the time, murderers kill. They bury the body, or they chop it up and put it in the fire pit, or look at the Saudis, however you say it, chopping up Khashoggi and putting them in a fire pit. They did all of the things you can do to try and cover up that you just murdered somebody. They chopped up the body, they put him in a fire pit. They did all of the things that you could do to cover up murders. And they still failed, but they tried. They did their best. You know, it was definitely an A for effort as murder cover-ups go. And by the way, Biden fist bumping fucking supreme leader of Saudi Arabia or whatever the fuck he's called, the prince. The fist bumping him because they're besties. They're creating a genocide. Been creating a genocide in Yemen for years now together. Like the beginning of Laverne and Shirley, or that song "Just the Two of Us." It's like people skipping down a beach holding hands. Laverne and Shirley, like they're skipping together. Woo! Like that's Biden and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia while they create genocide. It's like, hey, we're doing genocide together. Because what's always better than genocide alone is genocide together. It's always just it's a fun and loving event. Individuals who served with the SAS squadron on that deployment told the BBC they witnessed the SAS operatives kill unarmed people during night raids. They also said they saw the operatives using so-called drop weapons, which are AK-47s planted at a scene to justify the killing of an unarmed person. So this is when the military brings AK-47s that are not military or not U.S. military. They bring AK-47s that would normally belong to an Afghan villager or tribal person or something, and they drop them on the body so as to make it look like they had a reason to just murder all these people. They just go, boop, here's your fake weapon to pretend like we killed you for any goddamn reason other than that we thought your falafel looked dangerous. And this has been done by Baltimore police. Were found to be doing this too. They murder a kid and then throw a toy gun down on them to try and make it look like that they had any reason to kill this kid. And so here you have the BBC, mainstream media, British government funded. So this is a state funded media outlet. The BBC admitting that the British Special Forces was murdering unarmed people and lying about it, not presenting evidence, fucking putting drop weapons to pretend like they had a reason to kill these people. And this is coming from your mainstream media. Now, why do they do this? Why are they admitting this? Because they admit it years too late. They admit it when people are not even caring anymore and they're moving on with their lives. That's when they admit this shit. And so this is classic mainstream media, like with WMD. You give it 5-10 years and then you go, hey, look, my God, my golly. What did we find out? Oh, my goodness, we were committing war crimes in Afghanistan. What? So there you have it from the BBC and this report showing war crimes committed by British Special Forces as they were by U.S. military again and 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 again. And our mainstream media barely ever talks about it, barely ever covers it, barely acts like it's a thing. Just committing war crimes around the world. What's the biggie? All right, folks, the rest of this live stream will be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. If you are already watching it there, it will continue as is. You don't have to change anything. But for those of you who want to actually, I'll see if I can put the full link in the, it looks like I can. I'll put the full link in the comment section. And the rest of this will continue at rumble.com/Lee Camp. Here is the link. So you should be able to just click on this and it'll take you straight there. It's free to watch. Free to watch there. Thank you for the donation, by the way. Someone donated. But the main way I like people to support the show is leecamp.net. If you go over there, you'll find it's a whole community. You can sign up. You can become a part of it. The lowest level is $1.25 a week. It's not billions of dollars. So $1.25 a week, you can become a supporter of the show and get free content every single week. I do a free for members live stream Q&A where I chat with you guys every single Friday at noon Eastern. And you can get that by being a member at leecamp.net. There's also other exclusive content. But yeah. So there's that. But let's keep it going. Let's talk about surveillance in our lives. And